Hello, I'm Dave Speakman. Got a great band coming in today, the Stray Horns, recording just some tunes for demos, for gigs. Basically, they want to get some more gigs. They want to document the tunes that they can already play. Just going to take you through the setup process at my studio in Middlewich, Cheshire. Please do subscribe. Please do follow me on Instagram and stuff, and give the Stray Horns a follow as well. They're a great band, great musicians, some of the best bass players that I know. Fantastic. We've got an amazing lineup today. Jamie Brownfield on trumpet, Mike Smith on sax, Anthony Stevens on sousaphone, and then we've got Charlie Johnson on the drums. He's actually playing a rig today, which adds its own challenges, but we'll address those easily enough. Mike Smith and Jamie Brownfield also do a service called air horns, which is session horns for your tracks. So they can either take your arrangements and play them, or they can do arrangements for you and put amazing brass parts on your tunes.
Lovely, lovely.
So the guys are all in now. Here they all are. I pulled the piano out because just in case they need to
Tune up.
try any ideas, tune up, anything like that.
Yeah.
So the next thing to do will just be to run through each individual instrument and get the gain set up for everyone. So the guys are all set up down there. I've asked them to just play together and I'll set the gains. I've already set some preliminary gains based on just sort of where I think they'll probably end up being. When I check the phase of things, I find it useful to keep everything in mono and check it with everything panned bang down the middle. I will be using the little Avatone speaker as well, lent to me by my good mate Gaz. Just listen to the room mic. I'm going to apply some compression. So the next thing I'm doing is just adding my Mixbus into the equation, which is the SSL bus compressor, the Cappy preamps that are here, and these tape emulators, the Rupert Neve 542s. So I'm just adding them in so that I get an idea of what it's going to sound like more finished. I still haven't panned any of the mics that need panning. I'm going to compress the sousaphone now as well. I'm just doing that on this preamp here, which is the UAD 4710D. It's a valve preamp, so I find that it gives just a bit of punch really. I'm going to compress it probably on a slow setting. Let's see how that sounds.
Well, I mean, if we just do that once more, then we'll probably have it. Then we move on. Is that Dave? Is that sounding okay?
Yeah. It sounds great. I probably need about another 5-10 minutes of just tweaking stuff. So here we are. They're ready to record their first take. Everything's good to go. Hopefully the mix that I've done that we're printing will be the mix. It'll just need a bit of mastering after I've finished it. Some noise, I think it's this. think it's this.
You need to come down again.
I think it's this.
Steady.
So we were having a bit of a problem with the sousaphone. There was a little bit of a sound, so I have messed with the mic basically, and we've just retaped it. It's not pretty, but so I'll talk you through some of the microphones that we're using on today's session. So starting from the beginning, so I've got a Coles 4038, which is what Jamie's using for the trumpet. Yeah. There's a 4038 on the trumpet, and then I'm using a U87 on the sax. And to be honest with you, with Jamie and Mike, because they're so experienced, I just sort of loosely positioned the mics, and then I knew that they'd just put them where they're best, because they're such experienced guys. They know better than me. And then I would usually then just come down and check that everything's okay. I've got this 87 in cardioid. Yeah, and just come and see how Mike's positioned it, because it sounds great. On the sousaphone, I have put this Telefunken M82 down the hole. So having some trouble with tape noise earlier on, but we've retaped it again and we've taped the thing on. And I found this M82 to be a fantastic mic for recording the sousaphone. It's intended for kick drum. I know lots of people live use the D6, the Audix D6 live, and the Telefunken's not dissimilar, and there's actually a video comparing those mics on my channel somewhere if you want to see it. Moving on to the drumses. So, just get out. Now, overheads, pair of 414s. You can see that I've actually positioned what I call the right overhead. I do audience perspective quite far over to the right. That's because I want the snare drum to be in the middle of the kit, and I've actually measured the distance of the overheads to the snare drum and made them more or less equidistant. And then just fairly simple, he's got this kick drum here that he's using, which is an old floor tom that the sousaphone player, all these guys play everything. They're amazing musicians. Anthony has cut a tom in half and then lent it to Charlie, the drummer, for today's session. And then we're using an SM57 on the snare drum. The only other mic that we're using is this R88. We're using this as a room mic. This is a stereo ribbon mic, so it's in a Blumline configuration. So I'll take you upstairs now and we'll have a look at what's going on up here. So in my studio, the control room's upstairs. So this is the control room, and it looks down onto the live room, well, onto a bit of the live room. So you can see it's all labelled up. The trumpet and sax and overheads are going into my AML 1073s. So these are Neve 1073 clones. These are the ones that he builds, and then these are some kits that he sells that I've built myself. They're absolutely phenomenal. Proper point to point, not point to point really, but hand wired, discrete circuitry. There's no surface mount components in these. They're all discrete, as they would have been in the 70s originally. Unlike the newer stuff, there's nothing wrong with the newer stuff. I've used the newer stuff, that's good as well, but these are equally as good, if not better. I've got the EQ in, and then there's just a touch of top end, and I've just done a high pass at 50 Hertz there. These preamps feed channels 9 to 16 of my SSL XL Desk. So this is the mixer in the studio. So they come into these channels here on the desk, which means that I can actually, gain them back, so I can get a little bit of harmonic saturation from the preamps and then dial it back to the level that I want it. in Pro Tools, so then they come in, then the trumpet and the sax come in on 9 and 10. So that's how it works. It comes back it from the desk then on the patch bay into the red converter. So it's a Focusrite red converter, which is their premium range, their top end stuff. It's really good. Before that I was using the Claret 8PRX, which still gets used on location jobs. That's a really good converter as well. I do think that I hear a slight improvement in the red, but that's, I mean, nonsense probably. It's probably no difference at all. So the 414s come in here as well to these channels, and then we are using the EQ of the Cappy EQs that I built. So these are built by me, but it's a company called Cappy, Classic API, which you're not supposed to call them, but basically they're API 550s, but as API 550s were originally. And these EQs are absolutely outstanding. Some of the best EQs that I've ever used in my life. What else? So we've got the drums. The drums, I'm using the preamps on the desk for the kick and snare. So the preamps on this desk are actually really, really good. People don't always think of SSL as making preamps, but the preamps on this SSL are fantastic. And I'm actually using them in VHD mode. So you've got two modes. You can switch this switch out, this top switch here, and that's like the super analog, like on the AWS consoles. And then you can switch the VHD in, which is, I think it stands for like variable harmonic drive or some nonsense like that. It basically adds a little bit of distortion. And I am driving the preamps quite hard. You can see that the faders are down. So the faders feed the outputs back to the red. So if I want to get some harmonic distortion, then you drive the preamp harder, but then pull the fader back, which is, you know, the faders are setting the levels to Pro Tools, so slightly different to if you were just using an interface where you would just set your level on your preamp. What I'm actually doing is setting the amount of harmonic distortion that I want with the gain, and then I'm setting the level to tape using the faders on the desk. The room mics come in on this AEA preamp, which is designed for that microphone. It has a really high impedance input, which stops the microphone from being bogged down by the impedance of the input. Ribbon microphones open up when you use a preamp with a higher impedance. It's not to say that you would always want to do that, but a lot of the time you do, and this preamp's been phenomenal for that. And then the sousaphone. Oh, sorry. This then feeds this compressor here, which, you know, so that's in these slots, which means that if you press 500 here, these slots come into effect. That's how this desk works. They're also all on the patch bay as well, so you can patch any of this gear to anywhere. When you press the 500 button here, that engages whichever module is above in the 500 rack. All of these 500 series things though are all on the patch bay as well, so you could almost effectively think of this as being just a 500 series rack that sits above the desk. One of the only things I don't like about this desk actually is that this doesn't appear on the patch bay anywhere. The SSL bus compressor doesn't appear anywhere. The kick and the snare are going in here using this, but I'm also EQing using the SSL EQs, the E series EQs. I am giving a good amount of bottom end to that sort of rig kick, and then just adding a little bit of sort of 200-ish to the snare drum, and just a touch of top end at 16k. There's a little bit of 4.5k as well on the kick. Oh, pretty standard things, nothing to get in a muddle about. The other interesting thing with this desk is that these slots here, so slots 9 to 16, can automatically be bused to the buses A, B and C. So we've got 4 mix buses on the console. So these, if I pressed 500 here, they would come to these channels here, but as I've got it, when you press this button here, this 500 button, it switches these tape emulators into the Mixbus. So because of the nature of this session, I'm trying to record all of the stuff all at once and print the mix straight back in, basically. So we're coming back out of the mixer into these last channels here, and then that is the only thing that's feeding Mixbus A, and then Mixbus A feeds the compressor, these, and I've also got these Cappy preamps that I built again. These are like API style preamps. They are in the Mixbus as well. Just to give it a bit more, you know, zing to the sound. And then I print all of that back in onto this last track, the print track. I'll do a little bit of mastering probably tomorrow for them, just to get the tracks topped and tailed and limited up. Here they are now.
Oh, here he is.
Hi.
Back from lunch.
Hi. How are
Great. Do you want to have a listen to some of the tracks?
we? Yeah, we can do.
Okay,
Yeah,
let's
that's
do
okay.
it.
Great
That sounds sick.
soundtrack for a 1920s event.
Wow,
Imagine
yeah.
it, you're like
yeah. Go on then.
So the SSL XL Desk has 4 groups. You can see A, B, C, D. Group A is the master bus, and then group B, C and D come up here. So the way that I'm using this today is group A is the returns from Pro Tools. So I'm using just these channels, and these are the only buttons that are actually switched into group A. When I switch the 500 button in, that switches in these modules that are above 9 and 10. So these can be used either for 9 and 10 by pressing the 500 buttons up there on the channels. They can be used from the patch bay and patched anywhere we want, or very quickly I can switch it into my master bus. In the insert I've got the Cappy preamps patched in. They just add a little bit of warmth, a little bit of well, saturation I suppose. It's going through 2 transformers in each of the Cappies. And then the comp switches in the SSL bus compressor. I'm actually compressing this more than I would usually, but it's sounding really good, so I'm leaving that as is. We are printing direct to Pro Tools then, and those prints are what I'm going to use because of the nature of what these guys want to do, which is they wanted to document lots of the stuff that they've got. We're recording loads and loads of tunes today. They want it to be done quite quickly, and they've only really got time to do 1 day's recording. I said that I didn't mind doing it this way. For things like this, it's going to come out really well. It will require a little bit of mastering, which I'll do tomorrow, which will just be top and tailing the files and applying a little bit of limiting. The other buses then in the desk, B, C and D, can be routed back to the main mix if you want. And they also can borrow from the 500 series slots straight away. You can just switch them in. So you can see I've actually switched in mix C. I've switched the 500s, which is this slot here. So this will be slot A, slot B, and slot C, slot D.
quite often use this in slot D for parallel drums, but I'm not doing that today. So I'm sending the snare drum on the way in to bus C, and I have it panned right, which will mean that it goes to this compressor, the 560. And then I've patched that back in, and that's actually returning here on channel 5 and back into Pro Tools, and we're recording the output from the DBX 560A, which is like a 160 but just in the 500 series thing. So I'm just recording some parallel compression of the snare drum, and that just helps me to get a little bit more length on the snare. It kind of gives the snare a little bit more body as well, just kind of thickens the texture of the snare drum and makes it more complete, really. The only other thing that I'm doing on printing back is I've added some reverb. So the reverbs that I am using today, Verb Suite Classics from the Slate. I've got my dark plate, which is my plate preset that I brought in, and then I've also got this Hall, which is BM7, which is the Brocasti presets. And again, these reverbs just feed back into the desk, and then we record the output of the desk back into this channel. Print. After I've printed everything, I will just rename the files that we're keeping, and I will take that into a different session to do the mastering.
So we're at the end of the day. It's about 4 o'clock. I've still got some mastering to do for these guys. I think we've all had a good day. How many tunes did we record, guys?
21.
21 tunes.
That's all right, isn't it? Very good.
In 10
Good
minutes.
In one take.
That's it, yeah. So yeah, we just need to pack down, get everybody on their way home, and
This guy.
thanks, Mike. And we'll be back. I'll be back in tomorrow to do the mastering. It's worth noting that this is a recording project, not a filming project. The video that I took was just for this vlog. If this had been a film thing, I probably wouldn't be able to mix it on the go. We would tend to do the recording. I also tend to need another engineer. There's the price of an assistant as well on the day. And that entails doing all the recording on the day, and then there's a further mixing day, and then there's a further video editing day as well in the package. So while these are bouncing off, I'll just say goodbye. Thanks. Please do subscribe to the channel. If there's any content that you want, if there's anything that you want me to explain about the XL Desk, if you're thinking about buying one, happy to help. Put some comments. I don't mind doing some videos about other features of it, or any of the other gear that you've seen in the studio if you want me to do videos about it and say what it's like. Got lots of other sessions coming up. My intention is to start vlogging more of these sessions, so do subscribe and you can see what the process is. If you want to come into the studio, please have a look at my website and follow me on all those horrendous social media platforms that we're all so addicted to.